Today, I welcome Alex Dave. She is a lifelong Grand Prairie resident, and she is currently a teacher at the Epic. She teaches A Plus Dance Academy and has been doing that for quite some time. She is the owner of Dave's Legacy, which is a nonprofit organization that helps members of our Dalworth community. And today, we talk about her grandfather, L.T. Dave, and he was a prominent member of the Dalworth community for during the mid 1900s, and owned a great deal of land and businesses. He also owned a barbecue restaurant and was one of the first or the first African American millionaire in Dallas. And there was a write-up of him in D Magazine, and Alex comes on the show to talk about that today. It was so interesting, so entertaining, and I really enjoyed talking with her. So, as always, we are always looking for sponsors for our episodes. Today's episode is sponsored by me, Jenna Pecor. I'm with Bancroft Realty here in Grand Prairie. It's a local boutique here, boutique brokerage here in Grand Prairie, and I have been practicing real estate for now over 10 years. And also Generosity Estate Sales. That is my estate liquidation company. And we do estate liquidation for people in Grand Prairie and surrounding cities. And we'd love to help you liquidate not only the contents of your home, but I'd love to help you sell your home. I work a lot with adult children of aging parents who are just looking to go through that process. I'm very that's my niche, but I also help first time home buyers and just people buy and sell properties that they need to buy and sell. But the conversation today was so interesting, and I'm so glad that Alex took the time to come speak with me. So without further ado, here's Alex Dave. Welcome.
Welcome. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited that you could be here. I first met you because my daughter took your dance class.
I know. And I was like, when I saw you, I was like, I know this lady. And I'm trying to figure it out. You know what I mean?
We saw each other at the Grand Prairie Historical Museum the other day. And but yeah, she took your A+ dance class that happens here at the Epic.
I know.
Are you still doing it?
Yes, I am.
What days do you do it?
It's Mondays and Thursdays from 6 to 7. And I'm changing my schedule, trying to do the beginners on Monday and then advanced on Thursday, and they come together at the end of the month.
And it's like all ages.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Yes. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
She really enjoyed it. And then when she got into middle school, it's like she started doing stuff at middle school.
Oh, okay.
So it was like volleyball and all that, and theater. But I really liked having her. She really liked it. It was fun. She especially liked it at the end when they got to do some fun freestyling.
Right. I still got her interview.
Do you really?
Yes,
I
do.
Hilarious.
I do.
That's awesome. But you had mentioned, even when you were here before, you had mentioned your history with Ruthie Jackson, and you talked about Georgia.
Yes.
And so when we were at the Grand Prairie Historical Museum, they were doing some stuff with Black History Month.
Right.
And they were watching some of Ruthie's previous interviews. Mm-hmm. And so I ran into you, and that's when I learned about your history with Dalworth. And I said, you need to come on the podcast and talk about that. Because I am fascinated by Dalworth history.
Oh, man.
I think it's very interesting. And so tell people a little bit about you. Like, you're from Grand Prairie. Tell them where you grew up and all that good stuff.
I'm from Grand Prairie, Texas. We're here 4 generations.
Wow.
And I know. And my grandfather came in like the late 1940s.
Mm-hmm.
And we lived on a farm that was Southwest 14th Street. So it went from all the way to 161, all the way down to Tyree Park.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was 199 acres, and then at easement, and then it became 177 acres.
Wow. And so give people an idea what's there now.
Right there is just the empty land.
Okay.
Right now. And I have some questions about how they got the land. And
interesting.
Yes. So.
Well, we'll talk about your grandfather. He owned a lot of things.
Yes.
A lot of land and all that stuff. So when were you born?
I was born in my age.
You can give us a decade so that we know how long that you've been in.
I'm seasoned.
No. Aren't we all at this point?
Larry seasoned.
I like that.
No, I was born in 1975.
And so where did you go to school?
I went to Head Start, which was on 23rd in those apartments.
Mm-hmm.
Then it migrated to the Hope Center right there on W. Roberts, but it was Sherman at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So then I went to David Daniels,
Mm-hmm.
and it was Dalworth at the time.
Uh-huh.
And then when we moved from the farm, we moved over there to Country Club over there by South Grand Prairie. So I went to South Grand Prairie.
Okay. Yeah. You're only 5 years older than me.
Really?
Yeah. I was born in 80.
What? Oh, yeah, the 80s, baby.
Yeah.
80s was good.
80s was amazing. We talked about the last people I interviewed were from a band. So we talked about the 90s music.
Oh, MTV.
Oh my gosh. It was such a cool time.
Yeah.
But there was a guy that I guess was a couple years older than me, wrote a book about the 90s music in suburbia. Because, at the time there were so many influences from like LA and Seattle and New York and Nashville and like all this stuff. And we just kind of all got that in the middle.
Yeah.
And so, yes. See, and I do think there's a difference between if you were a little older, like an older kid in the 80s, or if you were a younger kid in the 80s. Yeah. So or if you were a teenager in the 80s.
That's true.
That's a whole different scenario.
Michael Jackson was hot.
Oh, big time.
I wanted to do everything Michael Jackson did.
Did you?
Right. Yeah. And the jacket.
I mean, who didn't? Like that video was amazing.
I know. Thriller.
Yes.
I won first place at the talent show at Dalworth in kindergarten doing Thriller. Amen.
Wow. So do you still know the dance?
Yeah. I've taught it before when I.
Is that right? Yes. I was gonna say, is that kind of an influence for your dancing?
I've done that when I was at Dalworth, right?
Oh my gosh.
That was the first performance we did Thriller.
Wow.
And it was awesome. I was like, great.
That's amazing. So you moved to Country Club.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was a different experience because coming from down was majority black.
Uh-huh.
And then we was like three black people over there in Country Club, so we stood out a little bit,
I love that's one of my favorite neighborhoods.
Oh, really?
Oh, that whole area. I just like it.
Because Westchester did not exist.
It did not.
No. It did not exist at the time.
I feel like Westchester was developed whenever I was in high school. It had to have been in the 90s. Because my friend moved there and she had one of the newest, like the oldest houses now, but she had one. It was new at the time.
Yeah, it was at the time. Yeah, because it was getting built while we were moving. Yeah.
Yeah. So like growing up, I mean, tell us a little bit about your grandfather.
Okay. Here's the thing. My grandfather got murdered at his restaurant in West Dallas in November 14, 1976.
So you were a baby.
I was 1.
Mm-hmm.
So growing up, I'm looking at the picture of the guy, who did all of these things, and I'm living on the farm, So all I know is that he's taking care of me. I already have a gravesite.
Wow.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I already have a gravesite, and that our trust would take care of us. We had our own trust.
Mm-hmm.
A trustee would give my dad dad would get an allowance every month.
Mm-hmm.
And then if we wanted extra like Christmas or orthodontist or whatever, we had to ask the trustee for it. So in my mind, everything's set up. No problems.
And your grandfather's name is?
LT Dave.
LT Dave. Well, I was saying before I hit record, I went back into newspapers.com and searched LT Dave.
Okay.
And so I found a lot, I think, about it must have been your dad, I guess, because it was during the 60s. It might have been your grandfather too, because they all lived here.
Yeah.
And so they were pretty influential in like a lot of the business and the professional groups and things like that in Dalworth.
Yeah.
So I saw that name a lot. I saw Miss LT Dave because that's how they identified the wives back in those papers back then. They didn't. I was like, what are all these women's names? We don't know.
I know. Well, Betty Estelle Holiday.
Oh.
Dave is my grandmother.
Okay.
And she was awesome. Now I remember her, and she was awesome. She was old school. She never cussed. Wore pants and aprons, and she cooked. And since we had restaurants, I had top shelf cooking all the time. My dad could outcook my mom, so
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So did your grandfather? Did he live in Dallas originally, and then he moved to Grand Prairie, or how did that work? Okay.
What I know.
Okay.
Yeah. What I know. I know he's from Shiro, Texas, but I haven't been there. and then he came to Dallas. And my grandmother's from Houston, Texas.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not quite sure how she got to Dallas. You know what I mean? But yeah, originally from Dallas, and then I think he just wanted to get away, and also it was open land.
Yes,
and all the people I know that remember Granddaddy that still stand Dalworth, it was like it was muddy roads and no lights, and I'm like, and clubs and stuff out there, and because Dalworth was on the city,
yes,
before it was came with Grand Prairie, so
it was.
Yeah,
I that's a very interesting. I went kind of a deep dive into Dalworth.
Oh, okay.
And because David Daniels, who was also one of the Miss David Daniels, she was standing there next to your grandmother, his wife. He was one of the principals.
Yes,
he was the principal at Dalworth for a lot of years.
Yes, he was, and he was a very nice guy.
I
remember him because my mom tutored at the Dalworth Rec.
Yes.
And David Daniels would be over there as well.
He was very respected in that community, and he did a lot for that community. Like he was very good about finding the money, like the grants and the things, because to your point, like Dalworth was its own city. It did not have plumbing. It did not have roads for a long time.
No.
And he found so much money and was able to get all the infrastructure.
Right.
But what fascinated me so much was how many people that graduated from that high school into very successful careers. Yeah. Like he had a very successful football team. Yeah. There was a lot of people that came from there.
Charlie Taylor.
Stayed
very on 17th Street.
Exactly. And he went on to play in the NFL.
Yeah. Hall of Famer.
He was a Hall of Famer.
Man.
And a lot of educators and things. And I thought, man, this is a really cool school.
Yeah.
To the point that when they were writing about like desegregation, there was a lot of students that did not want to leave Dalworth because they were doing really, really well.
Yeah, and I talked to a couple of people when that happened, and it wasn't fun.
Tell more about that.
Well, I think what Ed told me, Ed, him, former city councilman, he was saying that how when they had to merge, and it was a lot of fighting going on because a lot of people didn't want to leave Dalworth, and they had like you said, the top football team, and they were really expanding, and I was like, but I'm glad I didn't have to live in that era.
Right.
I don't know what that feels like.
No, I don't either. But I think it was very interesting that the people that were the most opposed to it were the people that went to Dalworth.
Yeah.
They did because they were doing so well. Dalworth Dragons were doing really, really well. That was their team. Yeah. And the Dalworth Dragons. That's such an interesting.
I was a dragon.
You were? When you're a kid, yeah. So Dalworth now, what is it now? What is it called?
It's David Daniels now. I don't know if they're dragons.
I don't know.
I think there still probably are dragons. I hope so.
That's interesting. Yeah. It would be.
Yeah.
I mean, that's funny. So when he moved here, well, I'm gonna put the link to the Dallas magazine or to the D magazine because I think it's a really good article about your dad.
Yeah.
And what he did with his restaurant.
Right.
But which was called
Dave's Barbecue.
Dave's Barbecue.
Yes.
And he was considered the first African American millionaire.
Yes, and that was my grandfather.
That was your grandfather. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, your grandfather. Yes.
Yeah. So he was considered the first black millionaire because he had a plumbing company. He had a franchise, a barbecue place. They said 4 locations. I only found 2. You know what I mean? So I'm researching as well. Like I said, I didn't know the guy, but I know his name still resides on some of the churches. He finances St. John. Yeah, he's financed St. John. He brought David Daniels here.
Did he really?
Yeah, and people were also able to baptize on the land as well. He did help people with the voting rights. Yes, because you remember the black people had to pay.
They had to pay
vote.
Poll tax.
Yeah, and my grandfather did all of these things, and I'm like, man, he's amazing. And so I'm like,
yes. And he owned a lot of properties.
Yes, the real estate properties.
Yes.
So when I started investigating that, unbeknownst to me, because I didn't know as a child.
You didn't?
No, because kids don't care how the money is coming. They just
wow.
want, yeah.
So you had no idea who your grandfather really, like his legacy?
No, because think about it. I'm getting ready for my father, who pretty much is, you know what I mean, a brat. He inherited everything. Dad was fun. Just go ask Dad. He'll give it to you.
That's funny.
And my mom was a school teacher She was English and French, so she was more,
Mm.
the bone, you know what I mean. So it was fun growing up with them, and so mom passed in '92. I
Mm.
was 16, and my sister was 17, and then I didn't have a problem because when I moved, trying to venture out, dad paid all my bills. So
Mm.
I'm still not understanding life. I'm not, excuse me. I didn't know there was a financial problem. So then later on, I just assumed, okay, dad spent all the money. You know what I mean? But
Mm.
not knowing how much money and how much land, all the holdings, I didn't know.
Yes.
I knew about the millionaire status, but I was like, okay, dad might have blew it. I don't know.
Right.
So then I started investigating when that woman did the article
Yes,
at
at the
D
very
Magazine.
end.
Yeah,
Yes,
and
it
she asked me that question, and it was so profound. I was like, I don't know. And then I started investigating, and man, oh man, why did I do that?
So when did you start doing that?
I want to say it was in 2010,
Okay.
and I got me a lawyer that was from Dalworth,
Mm-hmm.
and he got us to prove that me and my sister were the last heirs, and
So did you have any cousins?
yeah, I have cousins, but I'm considered the last Dave.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
and my grandfather had a will that was 33. It's 33 pages in his public record, and he only claimed me and my sister.
Okay.
No outside children, no adopted children, or anything. The same thing with my father. So the will is in place. Nobody goes by the will.
Mm.
Um, since everything's in the church, you kind of bypass probate. I didn't know that.
Mm.
So anyway, we went to court to claim that we're the last heirs, and then things started kind of getting weird. The lawyers wanted to quit all of a
Really?
sudden. Yeah. So then I go get some more money, and then I get this lawyer. They stop. They stopped working for me. So I can't get a lawyer. I couldn't get a lawyer out here in Grand Prairie at all.
What? That's bizarre.
I know. So I'm like, okay, what is the problem? I've been having problems getting his name on certain things, and I'm like, yeah,
Wow. Well, in the article, if you read to the end, it says, well, it talks about all the things that he owned,
yes,
and I do know that in the article it says there was a portion of land that they took
mm-hmm.
and gave him money for because they were trying to build left field, I
Right,
think, and
right,
so but he owned a lot more than that.
right. Because I saw the Tarrant County. I hadn't even started, but the ones that I
Oh,
just the real estate. I've seen 60 houses, and now I hadn't even gone to Carrollton because I have the appraisal. I got the appraisal report. I got the deeds, and I'm just going through it. And some of the deeds you don't even know where they went to.
that is so
I
crazy.
know. I'm telling you, and I'm not knowing what I'm stepping in. Because when I started asking questions, some people wanted to answer, or some people wanted to act like that he never existed.
That is so
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah,
So it just disappeared and you
yeah,
don't know.
yeah. I'm still there. I got some, people investigating, trying to find out what actually happened because it is overwhelming. Because
Mm.
I didn't know where I would start. Or I started, but it's just the fact that I was trying to figure out why am I getting blocked.
So did the money just stop coming?
Well, I never had. Yeah,
It
I
was
did.
it just
Yeah,
came through your dad.
yeah. It just
Yeah.
came through dad, and so I just assumed it was all gone. But when I started investigating it, people weren't open to discuss it, and like I said, I felt like my two lawyers they got paid off. You know what I mean?
Oh.
So they said, "Oh, stop working on it."
Now
You
is your
know,
dad still alive?
no,
He's
dad died in 2005.
in 2005. Okay.
Yes, yeah. So I thought when I started talking to people and I had people to help me, I thought it was just over with. It's that people get money and lose money all the time. But
Wow.
so I'm still trying to figure out what the actual problem is, why I'm having such a problem. And that's what when I was at the museum,
Mm-hmm.
his I went a couple of hours up there
Uh-huh.
going through the death book because we had a guy that took pictures of the weddings and all
Mm-hmm.
of that. So he went through the death book. He went through all these photos I have because I got photos in the 1950s.
Of your
Yeah,
grandfather?
my grandfather,
Wow.
grandmother, all of that. And I go in the museum and I see the writing, but I don't see the picture.
Mm.
And I said, I'm not trying to be funny because most of the people in the thing I know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And Miss Gazelle Crowns Barbecue, which is still going on with her grandchildren, great in Crowns Barbecue. And I said she's an entrepreneur, but everybody else is, and was working and did a great job. I'm trying to figure out why my grandfather, who owned what I've seen, owned majority of Dalworth at one time. Why is his picture not in there? But I think it's the powers that be.
Well, I will say I didn't find a picture of him in the newspapers.
And that was another. Did you see?
Now David Daniels is everywhere, all over the place.
Yes, yeah.
Like you can find tons of stuff about him.
Right. I think because what I'm looking at, because they said he was a stern businessman. I think Granddaddy didn't want to go with the flow. You know what I mean? He didn't want to go. He had his own walk. He didn't need to be in the in crowd, or I guess you want to say.
Sure.
And sometimes people don't like that.
Yeah.
When you walk by yourself.
Yeah. But still, I mean, I don't know. It's crazy because like David Daniels, he didn't own a lot of stuff. I don't think. I think that he was very much into like civic duties and things like that. He was a part of that. But your grandfather was an owner of a lot of that stuff.
Right. Well, David Daniels, okay, if you go down Sherman.
And he supported a lot of businesses.
Yeah.
His name came up on a lot of like advertisements where it would be like, this is sponsored by, and it would list all those businesses. Right. It would say LT Dave.
Yeah.
And so that's interesting.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting when I'm investigating it myself and I'm sitting there, why? He's done the American dream. That's what we all want to do.
Absolutely.
Right? It's not just about Black History Month. It's about everybody's history.
Absolutely.
So even the Bible says, I think, and I don't have it verbatim, but you're supposed to leave something for your grandchildren. He did that in his lifetime.
Right.
And when I looked at the police report, when he got killed, he was 73 years old, still working.
Yeah.
No illnesses.
Wow.
So, yeah, I questioned it too. I'm like, why is he not... Why?
What's interesting about that is in the article it says the person stole like $30 from the register, but he had like $1,200 in his pocket.
I know. And then I read the report. I went down to Dallas and read the report, and the guy sat there and ate a barbecue sandwich and a soda. Went up to the counter because there was people there, but and he told her shh, and he had a gun and told him to hush. And then they ran on the side doors. I went to the old barbecue place to see it myself, and ran out and went in the back room and shot. And it was execution. It's right here.
Do you feel like because he owned a lot of stuff, he didn't talk about owning a lot of stuff? Do you think that's...
I believe it was because when he moved to Dalworth, you got to understand, all the Black people, if you were poor, middle class, rich, they all had to live in the same area. And till to this day, I have people come up to me and they know me and I don't know them. So I don't think he was hiding his wealth. You know what I mean? I don't think that, and I don't think he could.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think he could hide it. But I don't know if this is all tied into his death. And the questions of, to me, what I'm looking at, fraudulent deeds. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm looking at.
That's quite interesting, and it's, I mean, theft of being in real estate, theft of deeds.
Are you in real estate?
I am. Now I'm gonna have to, because I'm kind of, I'm so into history too. I'm gonna have to go into some of these. Have you researched some of the houses you knew that he owned?
I did. We're researching now because at the time the money was funny. So because I know a title search, I don't think nobody's done a title search on anything.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't know if, because my dad, he wasn't a suave businessman. I'm gonna be honest with you. That's why I thought, oh, okay. Yeah, I wasn't paying attention. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, but I'm looking, I think he just let things slide, or somebody hoodwinked him in some way.
Oh.
And so when I'm not going to mention anybody's name, but I had knocked on this person's door because they had got some of the real estate. And I said, how did you require it? They said, oh, I don't do real estate, and slammed the door in my face. And this is somebody I've been doing all my life.
Wow.
Yeah. They didn't want to talk about it.
Wow.
But I wanted to know, how did you get it?
Yeah.
How did you get the real estate in the first place?
Yeah. But did you pay for it? And where is that money?
If it was sold outright, there's no problem.
Right.
I don't have anything to argue with you about.
Yeah.
But if it wasn't,
right,
which I firmly believe some of the property was not.
Wow, that's quite interesting.
And it's a new thing now. And if you talk to some of the people in Dalworth now, they're fighting for their land too.
How so?
Uh Sometimes I don't even want to talk about it.
I mean, how big? So Dalworth now, how big of an area is it? Where does it go? How does it stretch?
Okay, 161 in Southwest 14th Street. Say, for Southwest 14th Street, all the way down to Greater Southwest.
Okay.
But they say it goes that way. But I always felt like everything over the tracks was in Dalworth. But I think originally
on the north side,
yeah, it was some Dalworth. That was part of Dalworth as well. So I was like, interesting.
I wonder how many houses are in that area.
I don't know. I don't know, because growing up, and then also my parents did not let us go kick it.
So you weren't allowed to just go and do that.
I walked Dalworth the first time, like on foot, when I was 95. I said 95. Ooh, no, 35 years old.
Really?
No, because we lived on the farm. We rented when I got there. Granddaddy, they said Granddaddy had it full functioning, the cows and everything, and people got to fish on the land. Now, when Dad had it, we just rented out the stalls for the horses. You know what I mean? And we had a couple of cows, and that's about it. Well, just renting out the stalls, and I had a horse. So it's like, there's plenty to do. You know what I mean?
Did you learn how to ride horses?
Yes, bareback first.
Really?
And then, wait. So one day, I got a funny story. So my cousin gave me a horse named Judy. She had one brown eye, one blue eye. So that I didn't get.
Which the horse or your cousin?
Good question. The horse. The horse.
Okay.
So I get on there bareback, and I'm holding on to it, right? And then so we would go around the house. So my mom would see us in the window. She's like, "Oh, look at my baby riding." I'm all and then so Judy was so used to being in the barn. So when I got around the house, think about W. Robinson, and then I'm coming over here on 14th Street, and she saw the barn. So first she started trotting, then she started galloping, then she started running, and so I'm over there. I'm probably like 3'5" at the time, and my dad's like, "Hold on," and I was like, "Ah." So when she gets in there, she just, I said, "Get me off here until you give me a saddle." Right. I was so pissed and scared. But he finally got me a saddle. So yeah, I did learn how to ride horse.
Oh my gosh.
And we had a pet, a couple of dogs, and we had a pet pig, Porky. And when I let Porky in the house, because it was wooden floors, and he slide, and they were pissed.
You let Porky in the house? How big was this pig?
It was a good sized pig. And then someone said, "Who let the pig in?" And I'm trying to dodge. And guess what? Porky was missing afterwards.
Porky wasn't missing.
I never did see he ran away.
Just in a different form, probably.
He said, "I'm going to go look for him." We never did see that pig. R.I.P. Porky.
R.I.P. Porky. That's funny.
True story.
So so how many horses did you have on this farm?
Oh, we only had one, but we rented out the stalls.
Okay, gotcha.
To the public, yeah.
So you had a lot of horses, they just weren't yours.
Yeah, they just weren't mine. So I would go in there and feed the horses and play with them and stuff, and see people break the horses.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, it is fun, because that's what Mom was like, "Okay, you got enough to do here," but walking and knowing what transition from Dalworth, because then it went through the drug phase, the 1980s.
I was gonna say, so that was during the 80s when you were growing up.
Yeah,
and I mean, I knew that there was horses and stuff on the south side of town. But I grew up on the south side,
right?
So I lived over by where the Coles is, the old Coles now.
Oh, okay.
And there was horses over there, and then there was all that land across where the Target is.
Okay.
But that's where I grew up.
Where's the Target?
Well, the Target's over by 20 and Carrier.
That's true. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
so
true.
I didn't know anything about the north side, so I didn't even know that there were farms up here.
Really?
Not on that side. I mean, I went up to see football games at Grand Prairie High School, but you went up Carrier. You didn't go
over. I mean,
Yeah,
there
you
was a
didn't have
lot of
to.
land you just didn't realize was there.
Yeah,
So
and then
that's cool.
South don't have a stadium, so all our games we had to travel.
That's correct. I was talking. Do you know JB Williams?
No, no.
He graduated a year after me,
Oh,
and so
really?
he went to South, but he was just on not too long ago, and he loves to talk about all that stuff. Until he goes, yeah, I mean, I call it the Warrior Bowl because that's just what I call it, you know.
Yeah,
And,
the North South. They're like,
North.
who's North? Who's North? We're Grand Prairie High. I'm like, okay, whatever.
So you were talking about Dalworth went through a transition,
Yeah,
where a lot of places did in the 80s.
yes,
Yeah,
it did.
yeah.
Especially I think was Reagan president.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and mom wanted us out of there.
Mm.
She was ready to go, and so they were building the house at the time, and I don't know, it was good memories, but I had to witness the house getting broke down, and so all the memories or whatever. But it was like new home, new beginning, blah blah blah, but I felt like that we became isolated even more.
Now it was Racket Club and Country Club area. That was kind of
Yeah.
new at the time, wasn't it?
Yeah, because
Okay.
they were building houses over there, and I think who was it? Prairie Pruitt and the who else was there? The Mitchells were across the street.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna be honest, I was like, okay, this is cool, this is exciting. And then we come home and they wrote NIG on our driveway. They told us to go, and I was like, Mom, I've never experienced racism.
Oh
never.
My gosh!
And I was like, they still racist. I didn't even know that people were still racist and stuff. But everything, they started to get to know us, and we, everybody started blending, so it was okay. It was fine.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had fun on the South Side, but I still missed Dalworth. You know what I'm saying? But everybody knew us. You know what I'm saying? Everybody,
because you were connected over there.
Yeah,
you had a history there.
So while I'm over here trying to investigate my life, I really believe God just said, okay, Alex, I can't do exactly what Granddaddy did, but let me try. So I started A+ Dance, and I said, okay, I want to cater to kids that have the talents, but humble beginnings, because you don't want their finances to define who they are. And I started.
Hey, I'm a single mom. That's why I put her in A+ Dance.
Yeah,
because it's expensive.
It can be very expensive, and I was in gymnastics, and I know that. So I started A+ Dance in 2008, and Christian Knapp, who's over here, he gave me the opportunity, and now it's 18 years.
Wow.
And they referred me. They asked me to come to Charlie Taylor. Then they asked me to come to the Epic, and I was like, they said, come to the Epic, Miss Alex. I said, I don't swim and dance. They were talking about synchronized swimmers.
It's beautiful in here, though.
I know. So they're like, no, come take the tour and all that. And I was just in awe. I was in awe. But now they asked me to come here. I didn't even know this place existed.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's an honor for them to say, oh, okay. So A+, now my vision is different. I was really based on the dance. And I got certified for mental health first aid. And so much bullying. It's going on. Self-esteem, no self-love, especially with the young ladies. So now I do, I don't know, was I doing affirmations when your daughter was?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Doing the affirmations, asking questions, problem solving. And self-love is really important. I don't care. It's a constant thing. You know what I mean? And I really want to help the young ladies as much as I can to go on the journey, because that's what's going to carry them on for life.
Yes. And I will tell you, Avery has had a lot of women like yourself that have really instilled that in her. And now, I mean,
awesome.
But I love that you did that, because you would end, well, first of all, it was, you wouldn't let them talk about themselves negatively.
No.
You didn't care for that. And I liked that. But it's important that women teach girls like how to look at themselves and stop. I showed a picture of myself to Avery, and I said, do you know that, I mean, I was a rail when I was in high school.
Really?
I was as skinny as can be. And I told her, I said, I thought I was so fat in this picture. I remember it. And she goes, are you serious? And I said, yes, because I had no, like, I had no concept of what that, it was just negative in my head. Yeah. And I was constantly comparing myself to other people and all that stuff. And it's like, it's important to be able to say that. So the other day we were driving in the car. She's gonna kill me for telling this story, but she pulls down the mirror and she's going to school and she goes, my makeup looks really good today. My hair looks really good today.
I know, that's right.
And she's like, I just feel really good today. And, she did her own hair. She did her own makeup.
I love it.
And I'm like, that is good.
Yeah.
It's good.
But you're confident.
Well.
And you're a great parent.
Thank you.
Because I've seen some that. Because you're supportive, and I feel like you're confident. But I think we all go through something.
We do.
Yeah,
we do.
I always got made fun of being short, but I didn't think because I am short, And
so I'm tall, and that was my other thing.
Really? And I just embraced it, because I'm like, okay.
Right.
I just embraced my shortness, and the kids, and I said, Miss Alex is 6 feet. They said, come on now, Miss Alex. But I feel that in my head until somebody says, you're short. I'm like, really? Okay.
Well, I remember the first time that I ever felt, because I'm tall. I'm tall. And I was always taller than all the boys, because in high school, they didn't catch up to me yet.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I was about 21 and I started going to, dancing and all the other stuff. And I was like, and I was around guys that were a little bit older, like 22, 23.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, now I get it. They've grown past me. Okay, now I'm okay with being tall.
Did you ever model?
No. I had a friend that did.
Yeah, you could have modeled.
Well, that just wasn't. I wasn't all about that life.
Oh, you weren't.
No, I just didn't take myself that seriously. Like I just couldn't. But I love to do choir and I love to do singing and theater and stuff like that.
Oh,
but
okay.
Yeah. But no, I love that you did that. That was one of my favorite things about her going to that class.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've had people in my life that weren't nice to me. And tried to knock down your self-esteem.
Yep.
It's like, I refuse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I refuse. I was like, I know my parents raised me better than that, so, you have your ups and downs of loving yourself.
Yes, you do.
But I think as the older I get, the more confident
I feel the same exact way.
Isn't it strange?
I think that you stop making excuses for who you are.
Yeah.
And you just decide to be who you're going to be.
Yeah.
And not make excuses for it anymore. I felt like for a long time, it was like I was constantly trying to change myself.
And I like your personality.
Well, I like your personality.
And I was like being nervous. It's like, oh my God, we're going to do this interview. I don't like talking. And I sound like a dude. They're like, sir. And I'm like, no, when the telemarketers call me, they're like, listen, Mr. Alexander. I'm like, no, I'm a girl. Because, I have this deep voice. I embraced that. My Angelou had a deep voice.
Yes, she did.
I'm going to embrace my deep voice.
And nobody likes to hear their voice in a recording.
And I said, she's going to make it easy because we just talk anyway. So I was like, I forget about it.
Every single person that's come on this show to this point, except maybe Junior, has never been on a podcast before.
Oh yeah, Junior Azanu?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, he's good.
He is.
Talk and I'm still working on it.
You're doing a great job. But I was just did an interview. I was telling you with the band and they'd never done it before. And I was like, they go, do you have an outline? And I said, no, I don't really work like that. I said, but I will tell you, you won't even realize you've been on the recording for an hour because we'll just sit here and chit chat. That's what we're doing. And so we were done there like, oh, that was really fun. And I said, good. That's what I want to hear.
But it's got a lot to do with you.
Oh, well, thank you.
It's got a lot to do with you because I was going to call you because I'm all, okay, what questions is he going to ask? And I was going to ask you. I was like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to.
Good.
It's just going to go with the flow.
Good.
And I was going to bring pictures. And my sister, I see, there you doing too much.
Hey, you should send them to me
because
I can put them into the episode.
Okay.
So if you want to bring, and if you have any pictures, like digital ones, just send them to me.
Okay, I got the survey for Dalworth, so
the whole thing.
Yeah, I got the survey, and also, I got it on my phone, but also, me and my sister got it framed, the original. You know what I mean, the original, and I was like, yeah, because it's like. Now I'm feeling like I'm fighting to say, yes, I am that person. Yes, I am. That is my grandpa. He did do these great things.
So you go back to, you said you were 35 before you'd walk the streets of Dalworth. So tell what took you back there? Was it just out of curiosity? Were you visiting a friend or what?
No, I was with somebody. I was in a relationship. And so they gave me the opportunity to be in Dalworth. You know what I mean? And just to walk. And then to talk to people that did know my grandfather.
Mm.
It's some people that Ricky Mims, he worked for my grandfather.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? So I was like, "Shoot, we need to interview him." I want to do a documentary so the people that are still alive that worked for him or knew him could say something. So yeah, I just wanted to be free for a minute.
And how did you feel when you walked through?
The other streets were fine. The street that I lived on, it bothers me. Every time I go down W. Robinson, which we knew Sherman, it bothers me because the house also across the street was my great aunt's house. My granddaddy's brother and his wife, Aunt Ethel, stayed in that house, and I'm questioning that house right now. I put in some paperwork and questioning. I'm trying to figure out how did that even get out of the Day family.
Is it in good shape?
Well, it's a church right now.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, it's a church. I don't know if it's a functional church, but it's a church. If you go down W. Roberts, look to your right. If you're coming off of like 161, and it's a Hispanic church right there. But that was my aunt's house. So that we were allowed to do that, to go across the street to Aunt Ethel's house, and she had a garden. So she taught us how to garden and everything. And my uncle Edwin looked just like my grandfather. So you remember I told you I was one. So I look at him, and you know what I mean. He had those funny blue eyes as well, and I'm like, oh, this dude looks just like that dude in the picture. And my Aunt Ethel, she's a very fair-skinned lady, and she always put her hair in a bun. And I asked her, I said, are you Caucasian? She's like, no. I thought she was. I did. I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. You know what I mean? I was like, nah.
You know, what's funny is like, I was talking about this the other day. So I do estate sales, and I come across a lot of yearbooks.
Okay.
One of the yearbooks I came across was from down south on the border, Laredo. And it was back in the 40s. So that was a predominantly Hispanic population of students.
Yeah.
But all of them, I mean, you could have taken all those pictures out and put it in Grand Prairie High School. All of them had the same hairdos. They wore the same dresses. Everybody, all the kids in that generation looked so similar to each other.
Right.
All the women wore the same aprons. They had the same, like you're talking about that. It's like when you look at through all those pictures of like the women that I was telling you about, your grandmother when she had the profession, looked exactly the same as the women's club. Like they all stood the same. They all had the same outfits. There were so many similarities between all the cultures and how they all raised their kids and did the things. And it's really striking that how things had got to be so divisive.
Exactly. Because I remember as a little girl, you know, I loved to go, we had a wraparound porch. So I'm like the one that my mom would do my hair, and by the time the end of the day, I'm looking like somebody ran over.
Sure. Right.
And so grandma and mom were in the kitchen, and at the farm, they didn't have a dishwasher. It was built old school. So
they were the dishwasher.
Yeah, they were. So grandmother was like cooking, and she's cooking everything from scratch. Okay? She's cooking, and then next thing you know, she's cleaning, and then she's cooking for lunch, and then she's picking peas on the porch. And I was like, ooh, I don't want to do all that. Because all the guys were outside, you know what I mean? You know, they got the little beer and they're chit-chatting, and all the women are in there dealing with the kids and doing laundry. And I was like,
It truly was home economics.
Yes, it really was.
I mean, when you think about it, like I kind of love all those old historical videos. So you go through some of these like 50s housewives, like the day in the life of a housewife in the 50s. And they were propaganda movies, basically. It was just like, but there was so much that was involved, to your point. It's like it was an all day long job.
Yeah. And I was like, she's doing it just now. She's getting ready, prepping for lunch.
Right. That was what they did all day. And it's like, I mean, and it sounds so like tedious, but it was important.
Yeah, it was. And who's doing from scratch? I'm not looking at any boxes. She's, you know, what is it with the flour, sifting the flour? She's doing all of that stuff.
Yes. And it took time.
It took time.
And then cleaning was like a whole schedule and taking care of the house and everything. I mean, but things lasted longer.
Yeah, they were in better shape.
They were in better shape. They were probably a lot more mentally like happy.
Yeah,
because they just didn't think about all the stuff that we got to think about now. They're just like, I'm just going to do my thing.
They had everything put together, grilled up, and slept in it.
That's the funniest part is when you watch these videos about how to get ready for bed.
Yeah.
And it's like cold cream,
right.
hair
Hair
curlers.
curlers.
Like you had to get your hair all done and then you're sleeping in your girdle. It's like,
My
really?
grandma, I'm telling you, my grandma did it. But guess what? She looked fine all
The whole time.
Yeah, she had a waistline.
And she had a waistline. Maybe there's something about all that. We need to bring it back. So did she ever talk about losing your grandfather?
No, she didn't.
Really?
She didn't. She was in awe because my dad, I think she was 39. See, she thought she had a tumor. They got married in 1927.
Wow.
And she thought she had a tumor. No, she was pregnant. And she
Wow.
was, she was 39 years. So they had opened, old school, they opened her up and it was twins. Yeah, it was twins. So they closed it back, but she lost the other one. And then my father came.
Oh my goodness.
So that was her pride and joy.
And she didn't have any kids before that?
No.
And was that her only child?
Her only child, her only son.
39. That's old.
Yeah,
that's
that was
an
real
old age at
yeah.
that time.
Yeah, it's an old age. So she was ecstatic. So she just loved. My dad's nickname was Speedy. So Speedy could not do any wrong with mother and dad.
Oh, he was a little. You kind of mentioned he was, but he was spoiled
very much, especially grandma. And all grandmother Day wanted was to go to church on Sunday.
That was her important thing.
That was her important thing. You know what I mean? So dad would be rushing to make sure. I will say he was a little late, but she, and I remember my grandmother would be just smiling. You know what I mean? She's like, that's my baby. I was like, oh God.
Oh wow! So were your grandfather and were they the same age, or were they close to the same age?
Yeah, both of them were born in 1903.
1903.
Yeah.
So she was So she was in her 70s when he was killed. Okay.
Yeah.
And then how long did she live after that?
She died in 1980.
1980. Yeah. So not very long.
And that usually happens too.
Yeah.
When people are together so long,
sure,
they pass away around the same time. So.
Well, so she just didn't talk about it. Did your dad ever talk about it? Like losing his dad?
No, I think, what I heard, their relationship wasn't great. Because granddaddy is a guy that's coming from nothing. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? To something. And I think he was real hard on dad. Because dad had to work. And he used to do numbers in his head. I'm like, Dad, how do you do that? He's like, I used to work the register as a little boy. Oh, yeah. I'm like, what? Yeah, he said I would get on the little stool and I would work the register, and I had to do it in my, in my brain. And I was like, what? So he's working like Michael Jackson or something at 5 or 6 years old. So his work ethic, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, okay, cool. But growing up, I really thought two parents were supposed to be at home.
You thought that?
Yeah.
Because they were both there.
They were both there. Because daddy's there. And then mom decided to retire and to be at home with us. You know what I mean? So she was always at the school or at the Head Start. She was the president of PTA. She did the announcements at the church. You know what I mean? And then Grandmother Day was, a trailblazer herself. You know what I mean? And with the Ladies of Distinction, she was the Eastern Star. Both of my grandfathers were Masons, the 33 Masons, but my father wasn't. I think because the Mason thing is very structured.
The Mason thing is very interesting.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother.
I know.
That's a whole nother dive, for sure.
When my dad didn't want any parts of it.
That's
yeah. My dad was like, "Oh no, I'm not gonna do that."
So both of your grandfathers. So your grandparents on your mom's side, did they live in Dalworth also?
No, they lived in South Dallas.
Okay.
Yes, my mom comes from South Dallas, and I was like, okay, we're in the projects, and I was like, interesting, Mom, because if you had met her, you like, I wouldn't have put two and two together. And what I heard, because since both of my grandfathers were Masons, my aunt, my mom's sister, knew about Dad, and he, you know what I mean, and kind of introduced them together.
So does she talk about growing up in the projects of like South Dallas versus Dalworth? Was it different? Very much, because
I don't know how they came together. I know that their first date, Dad had on red socks. Mom always had mentioned that, and she was supposed to be engaged. She was engaged to someone else, and he passed.
Oh.
Yeah, he passed away in a car accident.
Oh.
And my Aunt Barbara, I guess she thought, oh, my baby sister, this would be a perfect fit. And I think they picked mom because my mother wasn't a materialistic person.
Mm-hmm.
You know how you would think, okay, you see, I'm doing too much. My mother wasn't flashy. Lipstick, plain, not a lot of jewelry. And my dad wasn't flashy.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So I don't know where I got this from. I think I got this from my aunt or something like that. But they were very, fair. They just didn't do anything extra. Now we had new cars and stuff like that, but no, and we got new clothes. But I don't remember them doing that. Now, how did they meet? I want to say my Aunt Barbara introduced them, and the barbecue place, Granddaddy was thriving at the day's barbecue.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's what it was. Just
And where was Dave's barbecue at?
One that was on Westmoreland. One was what is Love Field.
Okay.
And then they said it was 2 other locations. I'm not quite sure about that. And Uncle Edwin ran the other one.
Yeah.
His brother.
I saw in the article it said there was 4.
Yeah.
And it was like he rented out like a franchise kind of. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. And I was like, how did he see? That's my thing is I know Mr. Evie helped him out.
Uh-huh.
But just to get all of those things going on at once.
It's a lot.
I know, I'm trying to do it now.
Like, did you know anything about his history with food? Like, was he always really into that? Or?
I want to say that probably had something to do with my grandmother.
Okay.
And she could cook.
Really?
So I think maybe the real estate was his passion.
Uh-huh.
And then the real food, I think it was my grandmother. Because I had a lady named Patsy that worked, she just was from Dalworth. And she said, me and your grandma would get up at about 4 or 5 in the morning, chop up all of that stuff with a potato salad.
Chop up the porkies. The porkies?
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to. When you were talking about that, I was like, that's
child trauma.
You're like, what am I eating? But it's so delicious.
I know. You can see it on the screen like, Ruby, Porky will come back. I was like, that is wrong for that. Oh my God.
So did she cook at the restaurant too?
Yeah. Well, I think she did all of the cooking. What I was understanding, she did all the cooking there, and then they would send it out. But that was every day.
Wow.
Every day. Do you imagine they didn't have any chopping stuff?
So you think they made it in the house?
No, that's what Aunt Pat said.
Wow.
And I believe her.
Wow.
They did all of that at the house, and then they took it to the restaurant.
Wow.
And yeah.
That's crazy.
That is crazy because are you going to cook today?
Me today? Yeah. Let's see. I cooked last night. I sent my daughter with leftovers from last night's dinner. Now, I did not make the chicken. The chicken was already made for me, and then I mixed it with other things that were made for me.
I know.
But I put it together.
You put it together. It's going to be ready at least by 5.
I did not go through a drive-through. I actually made it and put it in the oven. So
I remember Wyatt's was like Wyatt's cafeteria. You remember when Wyatt's?
That was my favorite
ever. I know.
Did you go to the one at Six Flags Mall?
Oh no.
Which one did you go to?
The one downtown on this side, on Jefferson.
Oh,
that one. I'm kind of by Ace Hardware.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was a Wyatt's over there. They must have moved into the mall because whenever there was one right in there, and then there was that Mexican food restaurant that was in there right across, and it was over by Dillard. But I remember going to Wyatt's after church. Oh. And they had the cart with all the desserts on it.
Yeah.
And all the drinks. Did you remember that? Like with the milk and the chocolate milk. And I was like, Papa, I want that. And I would just get chicken fried steak and mashed potatoes and chocolate milk. I don't know how I wasn't like, I was a rail considering I was eating like that. And then the French silk pie. But when you're 12, you can eat that kind of stuff.
I know, but we had decent food all the way, and that was decent food though. You had a vegetable because you had to have a vegetable.
Yes.
Now I'm like, oh my God, drive-through is like the next.
I know.
You would get McDonald's every now and then. You're like, oh, I want McDonald's.
I can't do that all the time anymore. The problem is with running the businesses like I do. It's so much more convenient just to go through.
Yeah, the doctor.
But I can't do that because it is incredible how much of a difference it makes in my health and your weight. Really? I mean, when you eat all that processed stuff.
Yeah.
But I love the processed stuff. I do.
I'm working on my fupa.
Have you been to that to-go salad place?
No, my sister told me about it.
You need to.
I know I need to. Yeah. Because here's the thing, I work out. I know it's the food now. I work out. I have no problem with that, but it is the food.
It is, yeah, for me too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And my concern is just the waist, because I think the smaller your waist, the less health problems.
Yeah.
Because the pancreas is in the front.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So I think the more you stretch it, the less it's working, it's functional. No, I didn't do that. Noise?
Oh, they're moving stuff out.
Yeah.
No, the core. I mean, for sure. Yeah. And that is where when I start to eat to go like fast food, it immediately goes to my belly.
See.
And it's not good.
No,
it's not. And it's so I am working on that. I'm working
on it. That's why I wore this jacket. I was like, I don't know how much love.
Well, that's why I wore my sweater. That's why I wore black today, because I was like, when Daniel, so when we first came in here, there was couches and they kind of
I know, yeah.
And I said, Daniel, listen, I'm a woman, and when I sit this low and I lean, this is all that I see. I said, we got to do something about this. And he's like, okay. He goes, so I don't know if that had anything to do with it. But when I saw myself on camera, I was like, oh, Jenna. And so that's why I really started going to the gym, because I started having to look at myself all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm 45. I don't like it taking forever to get up out of a chair or to have a back hurting whenever I get out. I'm like, I'm too young for that.
Right. No, it's just annoying. But also, our body's going through changes, and then it doesn't drop as quickly.
It does not.
Say you remember, like, oh, I'm just going to lose 15 pounds, and then boom, it's off in a month, and then you're
good.
No, it's not like
that. No, did you ever see, it was like a side-by-side comic strip, and it was like, a woman trying to lose weight, and then a man stopped drinking like one Coke a day, and they dropped like 20. That's how it still is.
I think we obsessed with it, and men like, I need to push back a little bit. My dad used to say, push back from the table. So if you...
Spoken like a man whose father owned a bunch of barbecue restaurants.
I remember my dad was selling barbecue sandwiches. Right, he decided he didn't want to do the restaurant, but I think he wanted to work when he wanted to work. Mm-hmm. So he was selling sandwiches, and we had a little chihuahua, and her little tummy was just rubbing the ground because she ate too many barbecues.
That poor little dog.
She was swole up. She was thick.
That's the second time you've mentioned a porky animal that y'all had as a pet.
Nobody ate her.
No, she didn't disappear. She couldn't run that far.
Hopefully this podcast will solve the mystery of Porky and Dalworth.
Someone's like, I know Porky.
Your dad sold me that pig. What?
I have a picture of Porky in my living room.
Yeah. We might solve it. We might solve the mystery.
So how long did the day of barbecues go on?
I know we were renting out to a gentleman. So it went on for, I want to say, at least to the end of the 80s. Yeah, we were leasing it out. Dad didn't want to do the bar. He did do a barbecue place in Dalworth for a short while with him and my aunt, Paula. You know where the parking lot is at the recreational center?
Uh-huh.
Okay. We put the barbecue place was right there, right across the street from Miss Gazelle.
Okay.
Yeah, but him and my aunt, they didn't work out. It was my mom's sister. Oh. And then so things didn't work out. But yeah, he did do it once. And then he's like, I'm done with it.
So because owning a business is every day.
Yeah, and Daddy didn't want to be there every day.
He didn't want to do that. So how did he spend his time? Besides feeding dogs barbecue.
I'm just kicking it.
Really?
Yeah, Daddy was all over the place. Daddy, I don't know, he did not a barbecue, a water company at one time. And that wasn't good. It wasn't a good investment. That's why I questioned the whole thing. I was like, that
Maybe he just had bad investments.
Yeah, maybe he had bad investments. But I think somebody helped him out.
Helped him out having bad investments. Yeah.
You
That
know
could
what
be
I mean?
very true.
Yeah, or he signed something that he wasn't supposed to. But the fact of me steady trying to get Granddaddy's name out there, the fact that I can find him in Dallas more articles than Grand Prairie, the fact of kind of trying to erase me is quite making me question where all the land went to.
Yeah.
Yeah. If people weren't acting like that, I'd be like, why? This is a great story.
Well, the thing is like you weren't starting off to question it like that.
No,
you weren't.
No, I'm green. I'm like, oh, this is great. Maybe I should go out there. And that's why I started my nonprofit, Dave Legacy.
What do y'all do?
Okay, this is what we do. Well, you can also sponsor now a kid in A+.
Oh, okay.
If you want to. And or we have a feeding program at the Dalworth Red where we're feeding kids once a month. And then also we have and that's called Saving Souls. And then we have a Hands Up program where say a kid wants to do an odd job in Dalworth. And I believe me, everything is going towards Dalworth. So if you want to cut grass, tear down trees, we'll pay the kid or whatever to do the work for them. And then that also lets the elderly know and communicate with the younger.
That's wonderful.
Because most of the time they don't want to know the kids, and the kids don't want to know them.
I know, it makes me sad.
Yeah,
it makes me sad.
Right.
We need to do more multi-generational stuff.
Yeah,
for sure.
Exactly.
And I think that older people sometimes can have this idea that younger people aren't as hardworking, or they aren't as like they're just totally different. And I'm like, they're not.
They're really not.
They're really
and
not.
I haven't had any kids that if I corrected them really get all upset about it. Most kids really do want to be corrected or have some type of guidance.
They do.
I've learned that over the years. I've been cussed out by a 6-year-old. It's been interesting.
And how did that go?
Well, I was like, hey, and then he ran off. And then I found out his living situation. His mother wasn't too stable. They were over there with grandma. Grandma was not very well, but she's trying to watch 4 grandkids.
Right.
So when I started really going into the family and learning about it, and then he apologized to me.
Yeah, because kids don't want to be like that.
No,
they really don't.
No, he apologized to me, and the mom did something. She went out of town or something. We had a performance. And I see you ready to perform. He would come to practice and everything. And man, he performed. We had a great time. And that's when I had boys in my group.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. I think the girls are so aggressive now. They even ran off my boys to want to sign.
that is something that Avery and I have been.
Oh, you've noticed that?
We've had to really have a conversation. I feel like this generation, this teenage generation, is going back a little bit more to like conservative family value type stuff.
Okay.
They see the benefit of getting married and having a family, where when I was in school, it was girl boss this, and you could do anything you want, and the world is your oyster. And it's like, so it's like you put off having kids and you put off having families. I'm starting to see that the boys and the girls actually like each other again. Like, and it's hard because, as the mother of a teenage girl, you try to keep them from that.
Oh.
But that's kind of like the natural order of things, is to date and do all that stuff when you're 14 and not when you're 30, like I did. Because I'm like, oh, the dating pool got a lot smaller. What do you mean I'm not going to be 120 pounds and skinny and forever for the rest of my life? So, it's hard, but
but that's good. That's good. But I know it was like, I will say the women in my family, to death do us part, they meant that.
Yeah, well, yes.
They really meant that. So no matter what, they were going to stay in the marriage. And that's what, it took me so long to even say I do or whatever. But I was like, I'm not, no.
Because we were always taught it was a hamstring to your life.
Right.
Like watching your grandmother doing all that stuff. You're like, I don't want to spend all day long doing that.
I said, I'm going outside.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to do that. But they took marriage a lot more seriously.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's coming back.
Yeah, I hope so.
I hope so too.
I hope the order comes back, because we were kind of rebels You know, like, I'm not gonna get married. No, I'm not gonna. I want to do my career first, and you know. So hopefully we do. I rebelled against a lot of that.
I did too.
Yeah.
I did too. And like, I went and I worked for an assisted living community for a year, and having been around the older generation for all that time, was very good. I was very blessed by that. God put me in that situation for a reason. But one of the things that I did see was there was a lot of single women that didn't have any kids. Luckily, they had retirements or something, and they had a niece or a nephew that would take care of them. But that's why I told Avery, I'm like, you know, I really want you to don't discount having kids. Kids take care of you in your old age. They come in right, exactly. They come in handy. And I had one, and I'm like, you're gonna have to have multiple children because I'm going to need someone to take care of you. Sorry. I wish I'd had more, but you know.
Yeah, I know. I only had one.
You did?
Son, yeah, a boy. So I was like, I didn't know. I'm a tomboy at heart. You know what I mean? So when he came, I was like, oh yes.
You liked being a son or a boy mom.
Yeah. Because I'm rough. I know. Don't let the makeup and stuff fool you. I'm really like, you know, let's go outside and play. Let's go. You know. So I was happy to have a boy, and you know, I'm a grandmother too now.
No.
Yes, ma'am. It's a boy.
And how old is he?
He has to be 2.
Oh,
I know.
What does he call you?
Nana.
Nana.
Yeah, I don't want Nana though.
You don't want Nana? Does it make you feel old?
Yeah, I was like Gigi because my nickname is Geeky, so I'm like maybe Gigi.
My mother is Gigi.
Oh yeah, so see the Gigi's are going. Yeah.
So, but my dad was a football coach.
Yeah.
And so when I got with my ex-husband, he had 2 kids already, and who I still claim to this day.
Yeah.
But like we were like, okay, well, it wasn't an organic name thing. It wasn't like they didn't have a baby that was just going to call you whatever. So we were like, what do you want to be called? And he's like, Coach Pecor. And I said, Dad, they can't call you that. And he goes, well, just Coach is fine. I'm like, no. And he goes, what about Mr. Pecor? He was joking. And I was like, Dad, come on. So they went from, my mom goes, I think I want to be Lolly and Pop.
Oh,
which was cute. But then she goes, no, Gigi. And so now he's Pop. But he had all girls. So he was a football coach that had 3 daughters.
Wow.
Now he has 3 granddaughters.
Woo.
And so the youngest granddaughter calls him Popsy. And he's like, yes.
You know, we get suckered for grandkids. Right. And then we're just like, the discipline that we had before.
Oh yeah, it's like, forget it. Just forget it.
Tear it up. Just down and set it on fire.
So do you get to see your grandson alive?
No.
Do they not live close by?
No, they do. That one.
I got you.
That one, but we're working on it.
We're working on it. That's good.
Yeah, and that's the only difficult thing is because if you have a girl, you got more contact versus.
That's true.
But things are changing. I see more men having their child than I do women. What's going on with that?
I don't know, but you do. I mean, I was at the grocery store one day and I noticed how many men I saw grocery shopping with their kids.
Yeah,
it's definitely a shift. I mean,
when is Jesus coming back?
I don't know. Any minute now.
I'm questioning that.
I'm telling you, it's definitely it's an interesting time to be alive.
I know.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know. I've seen 2 people that look like the picture of Jesus in the last 2 days.
Really?
Yeah, it's a black version and a white version. Like Daniel looks like Jesus to me.
He does have the long hair.
Like,
Daniel is God. The guy he's assistant manager of the Epic.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, thank you, God.
So let me ask you this, because I think with this podcast, like I would love to do more with the history side of it. So like, do you know people in Dalworth that would want to come talk?
Yeah. Yes.
You need to find them.
Okay.
Because I think that like,
they're not hard to find.
And you be back on too.
Okay.
But like, I think Dalworth is just such an interesting community, and just its history is very interesting.
Yeah, and I believe that, and I want to say thank you because I don't want anyone to misquote or mistake, because I've heard stories about my life that are not true, and for you to give me the opportunity to tell my truth, I do appreciate it. The Dave family appreciates it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
But no, I definitely know some people that stay there and are older and they would love to do a podcast.
Yes.
And I will say that we did get Granddaddy in the African American Grand Prairie history book. He's in there.
Okay. Yeah. Good.
Yeah. So I appreciate it. I think what's his name? Warren Landrin.
I don't know. Yeah. I need to go in there and look because, well, my knowledge about a lot of that comes from the actual newspapers that I've been reading through. And so I need to go in there and just spend some time. But I also, Ruthie's videos are very important.
Yeah.
And that's how you and I kind of connected, because I don't remember what we were talking about. We were talking about Georgia or something was going on at the time, and I said something about Ruthie, and you said Ruthie was a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize, I mean, I think I did, but I didn't realize how much she was really respected in that community.
Yeah, she was very powerful, and I love it because she was powerful and petite.
She was.
She's a little lady, but she packed a big punch. And the fact that her wanting to know the history of Dalworth,
yes,
and just being, embracing our culture. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And Georgia, she's over the district. I think she took her mother's seat.
She did.
Yeah. So she's over the Dalworth community. And if I have issues or anything, then I can call Georgia, and she, helps me out. And Mr. Uzano, because he's at large.
Yeah.
So I'll call either one of those people.
Yeah. Yeah. She's in a lot of the pictures on your website.
Yes.
Yeah. Georgia is.
She just comes on there. She says, Georgia, come to the hood. Okay.
That's what you said too about Ruthie. Is she was, and she was also very big about not only documenting stories, but getting people involved.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah,
but it was just a different era.
It was.
You know what I mean? The 80s. I want to say 85 to 95. It was just. It was thriving. It was the best of times and it was the worst of times.
That's very true. Yeah. That's very true. I think that living in Grand Prairie at that point. Well, I remember the LA riots. I remember some of these things that were happening outside of our community.
Yeah.
That I feel like didn't happen inside of our community.
No.
But there was a lot of that influence in culture at the time. But I also felt like South was we had a very diverse group of people. I didn't even, it was almost like it was just a given that we were all just diverse.
Right.
It wasn't even a question.
That's true.
I don't remember all of our friends even talking about any of that stuff.
No.
TV at the time had a lot of different representation on it.
That's true.
And so, but at the same time, there's all these other things that were happening. So to your point, it was like the best in the world. And then you also had the drug influence. That was something.
I was going to say the best in the worst of times. It's like,
yeah, that was definitely something that was a part, but I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Because I grew up on the south side of town. In my neighborhood, that wasn't something that was a thing.
Yeah, well, it's changed so many people's lives because I saw the people that were straight, and then all of a sudden they're starting to lose everything. Of course, the crime is going, shooting up, and my mom, she was like, no. Even though we did not was able to walk around that way. She's like, no, I don't want that for my girls.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But at the same time, I think sometimes parents are too overprotective.
It's hard because your parents were in a position where they could move you out of a place because of that.
Right.
But but they also took you away from your connection to it.
That's true. And my mother's connection. Yeah, and my mother's connection. So it was like, I say this, teach your kids, because I see other people teach your kids everything that you know. Also don't over shelter them.
No.
Let them be exposed, because when we got shot out in the real world, we didn't do well. You know what I mean? And I see people that had to, as they say, go get it. We didn't have that go get it. Where are we going to get it? We already have it.
Because you already had it.
Right. So when you go and then you go in the world and you're like, okay, why am I not functioning properly? Why am I don't have that drive? You know what I mean? Like other people that had to. You know what I mean? So
overcoming is a very powerful thing. And yes, it stinks to go through some of those experiences. But it also teaches you a lot about how to overcome them.
That's true.
And I would imagine that your grandfather had a lot of that. I remember what is the thing it said? his success, he would have called it hard work.
Mm.
Was the quote, I think, from that article, because it wasn't easy for him.
No, but it was very easy for my father.
But it was easier in ways.
Yeah, but then Daddy turned around and showed us tough love, and I'm like, you know, they used to just throw kids in the water.
Yeah,
he just kind of threw us out there, and we're like, we're not. It was like sink or swim, you know. But I want to say the courage of starting A+ with nothing, and starting Dave's Legacy. Of course, I think it was just the thrive in the blood of my grandfather. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try to do something. You know?
Yeah.
So let me just throw myself out there and see what happens.
Sure.
And so I don't know.
Yeah.
And I've had a good run.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I've had a really good run. I've met a lot of good people. And my goal, like I said, I didn't want nobody to feel less than. Because I know how people make you feel when you have money. People are so nice to you. You know what I mean? But I also know what it feels like they're not nice to you.
Sure.
They feel like that you don't have it anymore. And I don't feel like nobody should be treated because of their dollar sign.
No. Well, everybody should be empowered.
Yeah.
I feel like that was one thing that David Daniels seemed to do a lot, was empower students that were in his high school. I mean, that's what it seems like from what I've seen.
Yeah. Well, he was a very nice guy. And you know that, like I said, the house. Okay, you know where Crown's Barbecue was?
No.
Okay. If you go into Dalworth and what street is that? It's MLK now.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And now it's an empty lot. That's where Crown's Barbecue was. It's a house sitting right there. And it's a church right there. That's David Daniels' old house right there. Yeah. And he donated that house to that church.
Do you feel like people in Dalworth know the history of Dalworth?
No, not this generation.
Not this generation.
And then most of it is not African American, I heard, anymore. It's more Hispanic.
Okay.
So the history is steady, leaving.
Do you know that how Dalworth started?
No, I don't. I do know somebody that does know.
Well, I would like to talk to him, because that's when I went. Mose Jordan, I was telling you about Mose Jordan.
Yeah, and I saw him like, 5 or 6 years ago before he passed.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I've talked to Mr. Mosley. And who else? Sally, of course. Sally was my principal.
Oh, Mosley. Yes, yeah. This is Mose Jordan. He was the first the black landowner of Grand Prairie.
Okay.
So when he came over with Alexander Deckman, he was one of his slaves as a teenager.
What?
But see, here's the thing is, like, they, back then they didn't, the records, to your point, they didn't name him. They named a teenager that came with the group. And that's how they listed it in like some of the, but Alexander Deckman gave him like a lot of acreage in Grand Prairie.
Yeah.
It was, where the cemetery is over by the lake.
Okay.
It's a black cemetery.
All right.
And Angela Lucky knows a lot
about
I know.
About to say, Angela.
But that's where he owned all of his land, and he was a farmer. And because he knew so much, look at that puppy outside. You said Chihuahua, and then I saw that little dog. I was like, oh, but he had all this land over there, and he was a farmer that knew so much about so many different types of farming things.
And see, I've never heard of this guy.
Oh yeah, you need to. Well, I went back and I read an article, and I read it out loud on the podcast to talk about him. But he sold that land and then moved to Dalworth, the area in Dalworth, and so, but he owned like a lot of acreage of land.
Really?
Which is fascinating to me.
I know.
Because, I mean...
Well, I don't understand why that... I don't know why we haven't done this already.
I don't either. Because Grand Prairie, to me, I'm sure it has its problems just like anybody else. But it seems like it's got a lot of really interesting history in that way that we don't talk about hardly at all.
Yeah, and I want to know more about him.
You should. They mention it. He's got a little plaque in the Grand Prairie Historical Museum, but I would love to. You had to go back into some of the articles from then to really read anything about him.
Yeah,
because the records just don't exist, which is so frustrating.
Yeah,
it is. It's frustrating. But yeah, so just fascinating. He owned like half of the land in Grand Prairie at the time. He went from being a slave in his teenage years to owning half of the land.
What? Okay. But you found out.
I mean, I tried to because I really went through. I wanted to know how did Grand Prairie handle all of the because this was a few years ago, and I was like, how did Grand Prairie handle race relations? How did they do it through all those centuries? I mean, decades. And every time I'd go back, I'm like, we didn't have the unrest like a lot of other cities did.
Yeah,
we had troubles, but it wasn't anything like some of these other cities you heard. And I was like, man. Then you go back and you're like, they. Dalworth was a huge, they created that out of nothing. And they were a part of all of the civic organizations. Right. I mean, they were on everything. So I'm like, I felt a lot prouder being from Grand Prairie, having gone through and read some of these things. Because I just think it's very unique.
Yeah. I know it was, I was told that the Wagners stayed right next door to Granddad.
Really?
And that's what he kept them from harassing the blacks in the neighborhood.
Really?
You know what I mean? So
that's very interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting.
I would like to learn more about that too.
I know. So there's a lot to know.
Well, if you have people that you think would be interested in coming and talking, like I think that would be, because I have on the podcast, there's a whole playlist that's all history. Oh. And I could make a whole one that's just Dalworth.
Oh, then that would be nice.
That would be very cool.
That would be nice. Yeah. Because you need to, especially the ones that are still there.
Right.
Yeah. Have you heard of Coach Grant? Mm-mm. Coach Brown? Mm-mm. Yeah, his son is still alive.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot of phenomenal people that I think they just forgot about.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Or they just, weren't concerned. Some people are not concerned to be in history. I don't know, but they've done phenomenal things.
Well, and there's not really an avenue for them to be anywhere. That's what I did this podcast for. Right. Is it's like, what do we have? We had It's Happening in Grand Prairie.
Yeah.
But we don't have anything like that. I mean, Georgia still does It's Happening in Grand Prairie, but that's more of like news and events that are happening.
Yeah, because I was on there too.
You were, yeah. Mm-hmm. So was I whenever I was in Miss Ruthie. I remember meeting her and I was like, oh, she had the typical blue eyeshadow with the big beehive hairdo. And I was like, this woman is so grandmothery. Because she interviewed me in like 1996.
Oh, really?
So she was older. She was a little bit older, but she had on her scarf and, all that, the typical Ruthie outfit.
Yeah.
And her Ruthie makeup.
I don't know if she aged because... Did she ever age?
No. She looked the same all the time. She looked the same all the time.
Okay. I don't know how, but I remember giving my last respects over there at the summit.
I didn't get to go.
Yeah. Mm-mm. Oh, man, it was a very long line.
I would imagine so.
Yeah, it was a very long line.
Yeah.
But it was very nicely done.
Yeah. I would not expect anything less.
No.
She would have expected that.
Yeah.
Well,
but I'm glad that you're doing this podcast.
I'm glad that you came on and talked to me, and I hope that we can do more because I think your story is very interesting. Now I'm gonna go home and have to dig through some.
I know, especially that real estate. Maybe you can close some doors and figure out, maybe help me figure out what really happened.
I know that's quite interesting, especially knowing how much stuff that he actually owned.
Yeah,
he did own a lot.
And you're the first person I've ever said this on the podcast with the threats.
Oh, you know what I mean? Yeah.
I was getting threats while I was trying to investigate my own stuff.
That's not okay.
No, it's not okay.
Because you're just all you want to know is what happened. It's people make it so hard.
Yeah, but it's like a movie. You know what I mean? Everyone's like, Alex, that's not really happening. I'm like, it is.
And it goes to show sometimes we don't even know our own history.
No.
The line of our own history.
No, because I don't know where I'm stepping in. I was just asking questions and but I'm not the only one that's had a problem and it didn't get solved.
Mm-hmm.
So and the lawyers stopped working. Or lost all the paperwork or lost all the evidence, so they couldn't fight.
Well, we're gonna solve a couple of mysteries. One of them will be Porky's. The other one will be. That's hilarious.
That's a true story. Oh my God! I wish my sister was here.
That's fun. Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on.
Man.
It was a pleasure.
And I wasn't nervous. Oh my God.
And I have not laughed on a podcast that much. And I won't edit it out either. It's just going to stay
Porky
on.
needs to be remembered.
Porky needs to be. You need to send me a picture of I put a picture of a pig and be like, in memory of Porky. Oh, that's funny. Well, thank you for spending your morning with me.
Oh, man. It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure.
Well, good.